Hey everyone, ever notice those tiny little words in English that are, well, they're kind of like superheroes? Seriously, they don't have capes or anything, but they give our main verbs these special powers that can totally change what a sentence means. So today, we're going to dive in and get to know these amazing helper verbs.
Okay, so let's get our imaginations going. Picture this. You've just found a mysterious, magical box. So what's the first thing you think? What can it do? Maybe it can grant wishes. Ooh, but wait a second. Maybe it should only be used for good things, right? And hey, who knows? It might even be able to fly. See what happened there? Those little words I just used, can, should, might, they're not the main action, but wow, they completely change what we're saying about the box.
So these special little words have a proper name. They're called modal verbs. But you know what? A really easy way to think of them is as flavor words. Yep, it's like cooking. You've got your main ingredient, but when you add a bit of spice, it completely changes the taste, doesn't it? Well, modal verbs do the exact same thing for our sentences. They add all sorts of meanings, like, can someone do something? Is something possible? Or is it absolutely necessary?
Right, so we're talking about can versus could, talking about ability and permission. Now this is where it can get a little bit tricky because some of these modal verbs look and sound super similar. But don't you worry, we're going to make it super simple by looking at them in pairs. So let's kick things off with two you probably use all the time, can and could.
All right, let's put these two side by side. First up, we have can. Think of can as being all about the here and now. It's for an ability someone has right now, like, she can play the piano. Simple, right? It's also what we use to give permission, like, sure, you can take my car. Okay, now let's look at could. Could often takes us back in time. It's about a past ability. So if I say I could run 5 miles when I was younger, well, that probably means I can't do that today. And here's a really useful tip. Could is your best friend for being polite. Asking someone, could you please pass the salt, sounds so much nicer and softer than just saying, can you pass the salt, doesn't it?
And this picture, this just sums it up perfectly, doesn't it? It really gets you thinking about the past. You might look at this and think, you know, when I was younger, I could play with my dog every single day. It's all about something that was possible back then, but maybe life is different now. That's a classic example of when to use could.
Next up, may versus might, all about talking about possibility. Okay, so let's get into our next pair, may and might. Now, both of these are brilliant for talking about possibilities. You know, when you're not totally sure if something is going to happen.
So what's the big difference between these two? Well, it really just comes down to how certain you are. Think of may as having a stronger chance. If you say, we may go to the park if the weather is nice, it sounds pretty likely, pretty hopeful, right? But might is a little less sure. It's a weaker possibility. Saying it might rain later means, there's a chance, but I'm not so sure. May can also be a bit more formal, especially when asking for permission, like asking your teacher, may I borrow your pen? And might is just perfect for giving a friendly, gentle suggestion, like you might want to double check those answers before you hand them in.
And here is a classic everyday situation for you. Let's say you're making plans for the weekend. You're not sure if they'll happen because, well, they depend on something else. You'd say, we might go to the cinema this weekend if we finish our homework. See, it's not a definite plan. It's just a possibility. Might is absolutely perfect for these if situations.
Okay, on to our next section, must versus should. Rules and advice. Let's talk about two really powerful modal verbs, must and should.
Now, these two are super important because they help us understand the difference between a strict, unbreakable rule and just some really good advice. And getting that difference right is, well, it's everything.
And this is where you can really see the difference, loud and clear. Let's start with must. Must is non-negotiable. It's a strong obligation, a rule you simply cannot break. If your teacher says you must submit your assignment by Friday, that's it. There's no wiggle room. But should is totally different. Should is all about advice. It's a strong suggestion, yeah, but it's still just a suggestion. You should study for your exam is brilliant advice from someone who's looking out for you. You technically have a choice, but it's probably the best choice to make.
And here is the perfect example of must. You must wear a seatbelt. Simple. That is not a suggestion, it's not a friendly tip, it's the law. It's for your own safety, a rule that you absolutely, positively cannot break. That right there is the power of must.
And now for should. Imagine your teacher recommends a book. They say, you should read that book. It's really informative. See the difference? They're not forcing you to read it. They're not going to fail you if you don't. They're just giving you some great helpful advice because they genuinely think it's going to help you. That's should in a nutshell.
All right, let's look at our last pair for this explainer, will versus would, which is all about promises and politeness. Will and would. These two are fantastic. They help us talk about the future, they help us make promises, and maybe most importantly, they help us sound polite and kind when we talk to other people.
Okay, so will is very direct. It's very certain. We use it when we're talking about definite future plans or making a firm promise. If I say to you, don't worry, I will call you tomorrow, I'm making a promise. It's also great for those on-the-spot decisions. You see a friend struggling with their bags and you just say, here, I will help you. Now, would is much softer, much more gentle. It's perfect for those polite requests like, would you mind closing the window? It's also our go-to for talking about imaginary or hypothetical situations. Daydreaming. If I won the lottery, I would travel the world. It's a dream, not a plan, so we use would.
And this is something we all do, or should do, all the time to be polite and welcoming. Imagine a guest has come to your house. What do you say? You ask, would you like some tea? Or would you like a biscuit? It just sounds so much warmer, so much more inviting than barking, do you want tea? It's such a small word, but it makes a huge difference in how friendly you sound.
So, before we finish up, I want to give you 3 golden rules. And the best part is, these rules work for all the helper verbs we've talked about today. So rule number 1, they never, ever change their form. There's no S or ED at the end. It's always he can, never he cans. Got it? Okay, rule number 2, they are always, always followed by the main verb in its simplest form. So we say she can go, we don't say she can goes. And finally, rule number 3, the easiest of all. To make them negative, you just pop the word not right after them. For example, you should not talk. See? Super easy, right?
So there you have it. You are now armed with all this amazing knowledge about helper verbs. So I've got a little challenge for you. Think about it. Which one of these will you use first today? You can definitely start practicing them right away. You should absolutely try to use one in your next conversation, and you know what? I'm sure you will do brilliantly. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer.